today I am delighted to be speaking with Brian Clems. Brian Clems is the online editor at Writer's Digest. He's the owner of the blog The Writer's Dig and the author of the humor book, Oh Boy, You're Having a Girl, A Dad's Guide to Raising Daughters. Thank you for joining us, Brian.
Hey, thanks for having me, Laura. I appreciate you inviting me to be on here.
Yeah, well, I wanted to get inside the head of an editor, and I think you're the perfect person to be asking these questions. Do you want to just give people who are watching a bit of background about who you are and how you got the role at Writer's Digest and what you do?
Sure. I grew up in the Midwest in Ohio and went to Ohio University for journalism. I held a couple jobs right out of college with various magazines. I had a magazine journalism degree, and we're working for trade magazines, that kind of stuff. Nothing too crazy exciting. And then when a position opened up at Writer's Digest, it was in my hometown. Everything worked out, and so about 11 years ago, I was fortunate enough to get a job with the magazine. Which is something I'm interested in. I love writing. I've always wanted to write. And in fact, yeah, as you said before, here's my book.
Yay!
Anyway, so I wanted to get published. I wanted to become a better writer. So it was just seemed like a perfect fit to me. And when I joined Writer's Digest, I started out as an associate editor and worked on taking submissions, working on columns, working on features. I edited. I accepted. I material, I read through queries, I did everything, and slowly over time I still do some of those things, but in a different role in a different way. And now I'm the online editor, which means I oversee everything at the website. If you go to writersdigest.com, at the top, the very first article you see is usually from my blog. Often my giant head is right there next to it, and from there I run a lot of stuff that I write. I run a lot of stuff that has been written by people who contribute to our magazine, and I get a lot of outside guest content. And because of that, I go through queries and submissions constantly, and I know all about the submission process from when I used to do it when I was younger, freelancing on the writer side, but then also as an editor on this side.
Yeah, and I love what you said there about you wanted to become a better writer, and therefore, like, the editing position seemed like a perfect fit for you. And I think that one thing for me that I found kind of acting as an editor at the Right Life magazine is that it has helped me improve my writing a ton. Like, just constantly reading things and seeing what works and what doesn't work has given me this new pair of eyes on what works in magazines.
Absolutely. One of the most wonderful things of being an editor is you deal with, as you know, many different writers and many different writing styles and all these kinds of things. And it forces you to hone in not only on your editorial skills, but you also do pick up little things from all these other writers, because often they have their own talents and gifts. They may be weak in one area but very strong in another. And those are the kinds of things where you can help them in some of the weak areas, but at the same time you can pick up some notes of your own and become a better writer yourself from reading their work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think it's allowed me to hone my pitching process a lot better. So, I used to be very formal when I pitched editors, and I think that's because I didn't truly understand that there was a person on the other side of the email. But I don't know about you, I'd love to hear your opinion, but I love to get pitches that are a little bit quirky or have some humor in there, or just kind of that person understands that there is a human on the other end of it, and they're really trying to make a connection with me. It makes receiving emails a lot more fun, but it also shows me the writing style of that person. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I agree. I think it's nice to be a little more personal, to use your voice in your query letter. I find one of the things I kind of enjoy is especially when people introduce themselves and mention that they've read either my Writer's Digest blog or my parenting blog, which my book is based off, which is called thelifeofdad.com. Some people mention that and say, oh, I read this article on that blog. I really enjoyed it. I think what I'm writing is kind of similar or different, or I read something on the Writer's Digest blog. They make that connection. They kind of reach out, and it's less formal. It's not like to Mr. Clems. Like I'm okay with people putting Brian. I think that's great. And sometimes they misspell it and spell brain because they transpose numbers. And I think that's okay too. Normally I'm against misspelled names, but that one's all right. But anyway, I think it's nice to have that personal touch. I think it's meaningful and to be more friendly. I get 100,000 emails a day. Not quite that many, but it feels like that. And so the more super formal ones, kind of read through and read through. But if they can say something that makes me pause for a second and be like, oh, yeah, I remember that I did that, or, oh, I'm glad they enjoyed that, it does give me an opportunity to have, make a connection, at least a little bit better of a connection for sure.
Yeah, so you really like it when someone shows that they're familiar with your work. What else do you look for in a writer? Like, what is the perfect experience for you when someone submits to you? Let's talk it through from start to finish. So from the pitch to the time that they submit that piece of work, what is the perfect experience? Like, what makes you fall in love with a writer and would make you want to invite that writer back onto Writer's Digest?
Great question. The keys to me from kind of that beginning experience onward is when someone sends me a pitch, the things I look for the most are, one, do they have a good idea? I mean, that's something that I'm always looking for. People who become familiar with my blog or familiar with the magazine often know the kinds of articles that we run. Finding a new angle on something or finding a niche maybe we haven't covered. Finding that good idea, those tip-based ideas that really strikes me, and anything that can make for a good title often helps, and good ideas often lend themselves to good titles. So that's kind of one of those big draws, especially when it comes to query letters. People can say, do the personal stuff, which I recommend, and you can give your writing experience. That always helps, to give me some guidelines. But, I don't click and, like a lot of editors, you don't have time, so you don't click and read too much. It's just nice to know that you have them. But if you don't, that shouldn't scare you either. Mainly what you want to do is come up with a great idea. That's number one. Number two, the best thing that someone can do with me is early on make sure we know we're on the same page. And that's, I often will send, after they submit the query, I'll send them a list of like, here's what I'm looking for by way of word count, by way of this, by way of that. These are all the things I'm looking for, and I just want you to fall in those guidelines. If you have questions, ask, but also try to keep them to about a one email kind of thing, because as you know, the editors, we're juggling a lot of freelance content. So, and the other thing is, meet your deadline. If you get it in before the deadline, that's amazing. It gives me a lot of flexibility, and it gives me a lot of opportunity to put things online. If it comes in after, some editors will consider that the end of the world and will never work with you again. I don't always. If you do an amazing job, sometimes I get forgiveness on the first time or so. But after that, if it becomes a reoccurring thing, then you feel like you can't count on that writer. And that's the goal of any writer should be someone an editor can count on. And I have my stable of people I can count on, and I turn to them all the time.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I've definitely had the experience of people who miss their deadline, and I think you're right. That's forgivable once or twice, but I think also there is an etiquette involved, and it's nice if you approach it and explain why it's late or
Sure.
apologize or. But I think certainly the most important thing for me is that I can rely on that person. And if you do get it in before the deadline, that is, I really think 90% of the work done for you. And I remember hearing this thing which has really stuck with me. I want to say it was Neil Gaiman that said it, but I might be wrong. I think it was a Stanford address, and he said something like, there's three things that you need to do to really like blow people's minds, and one is to meet your deadlines. Another one is to write really good content. And then what was the third one? Maybe you can help me out with this. But his basic idea was like, if you can hit all 3 points, then you're gonna, outlive every other one of the writers out there, because very few people manage to hit all 3. I really can't think what the third one is now, which is terrible. But
for me, if you don't be difficult, I've run into writers before that we've worked out something. They send in an article. It's a pretty good piece. I made some edits, and then they'll send me back this like 17 bullet point kind of thing with sub bullet points on why things should be changed back, why this shouldn't be like this, why it shouldn't be like that. I never have a problem if there's a real beef with a particular edit because I changed the meaning of something or something like that. But I found that if I have someone who takes up a lot of my time on that front, they tend to be more difficult to deal with. And I'm always 100% more willing to work with someone who will only change something if it's really a fact problem, as opposed to an opinion problem. And generally, most of the time, when I send them a galley or a link, they say it looks great.
Yeah, Yeah. So that's one of your pet peeves. Are there any
Yeah.
more that jump out at you?
The other pet peeves, I was joking before about name, but when people misspell my last name, that's kind of a pet peeve. It's not that difficult. You Google me online, I'm everywhere. I've got links all over the place. So I find that's kind of annoying because it shows you're not as details oriented. The other pet peeve I usually will have is if I assign something and it comes in and I have a date for it to run, but I keep getting follow-up emails in between, re-asking that question, or you'd be surprised how many people ask me that, even after I've given them a date saying it's going to run, whatever, January 15th or something like that, and then they'll follow up, say, hey, is my piece ready? Is it going yet? Or that kind of stuff, and
Mm.
and that's kind of a pet peeve for me as well. But for the most part, I find that I'm pretty easy to go into work with. It's just knowing that. As editors, our time is very limited. We have smaller staffs than ever, and our goal is to do as much as humanly possible in the time that we have. So, my recommendation the other pet peeve I have is super long emails. They're tough to get through, and they're tough to digest, and they don't get responded to as quickly, to be quite honest.
Yeah. So I think the overall message is just make the editor's life as easy as possible and respect their time.
Agreed. And I think as an editor, I try to do the same for the writer. I try not to waste their time very much. I try to be pretty direct and give them specific points and keys and what I'm looking for, and hopefully that makes it so they're not wasting time either.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. So here's just quite a specific question. But
Sure.
when writers are pitching you their idea, do you like them to include a title with that pitch, or just to kind of leave it open and just mention the idea without including a title?
I actually love it when they include a title with the pitch, though, I get bothered if they're tied to it. I often change it for many reasons, whether it's, I have a better title in mind, whether, because I deal mostly with the web now, we deal a lot with search engine optimization and making sure that Google can find us. Like, we want people to be able to find your article or find our article that you've written, and so we will make changes, but I'm all for coming up with the title. Often it can grip you, and sometimes it helps sell the idea. If I was a little hesitant on the idea, if I see the title, I may be able to help shape it better. So I'm all for it. There are other editors who don't like it at all, but I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. I love having the title because that allows me to picture whether it's a good fit for the magazine or not. But sometimes I can tweak it and think this title's not quite right, and as long as that writer isn't tied to the title, then I can see it working. And you're right, it helps you to hone the idea and to kind of both be on the same page about what this article is going to be like.
Right. As a writer, I always try to be flexible, and I try to be flexible as well. When I'm writing for other people, because I know how difficult the editor's job can be, and how time crunched it is. So
Yeah. So you brought up a really good point there about Writer's Digest Online, and the articles, you want them to be SEO friendly. How
yes.
is that something that you mention in your guidelines, or is that something that you expect the writer to know about, or how do you work around that?
Good question. I don't mention it at all. I don't expect the writer to know anything about that. I found over time that that's kind of an art form, and the idea when I say SEO, and however many people in the audience are familiar with it, is search engine optimization. Those are keywords and phrases that you put into the articles to help Google find you and search engines find you. And your goal isn't to trick Google or to do anything like that. The goal is just to be able to tell Google, this is what this article is really about, and if people are searching for this thing, they want that we have the content for them. And so that's something that I do on my end, and I've taught my team of editors, a lot of the basics. Some of them really work hard at it. Some of them do a more moderate level, but often they focus on print. So there's a big difference between print and online. And but part of my job, a big part of my job now, is going in and tweaking articles, tweaking wording, even ever so slightly, just to help. Because visibility is the best thing you can have in the magazine world, in the book world, wherever you're writing for. But the hardest thing is to have people find you. And anything you can do to help people find you and find your content is great. So to answer your question, no, I don't expect writers to know that at all. I expect them to focus on the thing that they're good at, which is writing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting point since most people will know the paperback copy of Writer's Digest, and I wondered if does the content, I mean, is it cross-posted between the
Uh,
online and the?
Some of it is like not when the issue's out. Usually not for a while. Too issues are well off newsstands. Sometimes we repurpose some of that content to get greater uses out of it, especially timeless content.
Mhm.
And when we do, often they will have different titles, and some of the wording and the decks and that kind of stuff will be different because in a magazine you can use clever titles and you can use puns. I love puns. I mean, I think they're hilarious. But online, people don't search for a pun. They search for how to do X, Y, Z. How to write a better novel, and so because of that, you have to be cognizant of how you present yourself online so people can find you.
Yeah. All right. So now is your chance, Brian, to tell people who are watching, who are mostly writers or they'd like to kind of get their first piece published. What would you like all writers to know? What would if yeah, I think we've talked about some of the things, but now is your chance to really explain to these writers what you as an editor want from a writer and anything else that any other tidbits you'd like to give them.
Sure. The best advice I can give to any writer who's trying to break into any magazine or anything like that, especially if you don't have clips, and by clips I mean previously published material that you can point editors to prove you have a track record of writing. The best things you can do is find magazines that have upfront sections. These are sections of the magazine that have shorter pieces, not the big feature 2,000 word pieces. These are 300 to 700 word pieces that's where the opportunity lies for new writers to break in, because those assignments are smaller and they're usually handled by editorial assistants or associate editors or people a little lower on the chain. Those people are more open to working with new editors. They're not investing too heavily with a smaller piece, so they can give you that opportunity to go in and write that piece. And if you do a great job on that, that's how you will break your way into writing features or writing interview pieces and other pieces for magazines. And I find that a lot of people, not that you shouldn't shoot high if you have a great idea, but I think people miss those golden opportunities to break in. And that's very important. A lot of people think, how can I get published if I don't have any clips? It says I need clips to get published, and that's the perfect way to go in and get published and get your first set of clips.
Oh, that's fantastic advice. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today.
Thanks. It's funny to think I have any wisdom. I have 3 young daughters, and they're lots of fun, but I feel like they suck all my energy out of me. So.
Well, we really enjoyed the piece that you did in issue 8 of the Right Life magazine about anyone who's watching should go and download that issue and read about Brian, who is the online editor in his day job, but in the evenings he drinks fake tea and wears a tiara, I believe.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I never owned any pink in my life, and now I have 3 daughters, and they're ages 6, 4, and 2, and it's all princesses. It's all pink. It's all everything that you would think of, and I tell you, I love it. I love it. It's this whole new experience. I had monster trucks when I was young, and I tried to give them monster trucks, but they're their friends all like this too. So I get to have those tea parties and do all those wonderful things, and I love it. It's great. But thanks. It was wonderful writing for you guys. That was a fun issue to read, and that love issue, and I'm thankful to be a part of it.
All right. Well, thanks again, and we will talk to you soon. Would you like to just read out your social media links or anywhere we can find you online?
Sure, absolutely. You can find me at the place you can find me is writersdigest.com. You'll find tons of articles written by me. You can also find me on my dad blog at thelifeofdad.com. And you can find me on Twitter. That's mainly the best place to find me, and it's at Brian Clems, BrianKlems.
Get the spelling right, yeah.
Yeah, get the spelling right. It's tough when your name begins with a K. Everybody thinks it's a C, and I'm sure it's flip-flop the other way too. So anyway, yeah, those are the best places to find me, and I hope that you do. And I'm very socially active online. So.
All right. Thanks again, and have a great day, Brian.
Thanks for having me, Laura. I really appreciate it.
Bye.